what is the advantage then at the end of the day for Mr. Business Owner to go out there and replace, take that cash, which is really hard to come by in today's economy, and say, let's upgrade 100 computers, let's upgrade 50 computers.
Yeah, there really is no reason.
There's no compelling reason.
Back in the day, like, I don't know if you remember Windows 95.
Oh, yeah. 13 floppy drive. I got 13 floppy disks.
You remember what would happen if you were to play 95?
What's that?
At the time, really powerful computer equipment.
Oh,
it would crash itself. It couldn't handle the speed. And that was really one of the main reasons you had to upgrade to Windows 98 was because, you know, your lightning fast 233 gigahertz Intel processor would crash Windows 95. And so when you moved to Windows 98, it was more stable. And Windows 98 even had the same problem. You know, when the 600 megahertz processors came out, it was still a bit crashy. And then we've seen, you know, Windows 98 Second Edition, which addressed a lot of those problems. But with Windows XP, you never had that problem. You can throw it on the brand new, state-of-the-art, lightning-fast hardware. There's drivers available for it, and it's going to blow the doors off anything that you could have done in Vista. I mean, I like to say that Vista makes your brand new computer run like the best 2-year-old computer you ever had. You saw
yeah. Normally, when you shell out your cash for an upgrade, you kind of expect things like maybe a little bit better performance, not a step backwards.
I mean, people like what they get with XP. It runs well. I mean, it's not an ugly upgrade.
Now, whoa, back up. Did you say that XP wasn't ugly?
I don't think it's ugly.
Well, you have poor taste. I'm just playing.
Take a look at the interface.
It's ugly. Fisher Price.
Take a look at the interface of Windows 2000 and then compare it to Windows XP. Completely different.
That's... Yeah, but then they have the same interface as Windows 95 on Windows 2000. Mm-hmm. Windows 98, Windows 95, same, basically the same thing.
Yeah, you know, and it's kind of the same thing with Apple. I mean, up until you hit OS 10, a Mac looked like a Mac.
Yeah.
There was no, you know, differentiating. You know, everything looked the same. And so, you know, I think Windows XP is a lot like OS 10. It's, you know, they change things and put more of a focus on aesthetics. I mean, yeah, it still isn't like what OS 10 looks like, but at the same time, it's not horrible either. It's not Windows 95-ish. And people can live with it, and people are familiar with it by this point in time. Mm-hmm. So why should they give up their familiarity, the performance, and, you know, the availability of drivers, applications, and, you know, for something new? There's really no reason for them to at this point in time. And I think the only way Microsoft is going to get people to abandon Windows XP is by going end of life with support, much like they did with Windows 2000.
Well, you know, I think there is one critical difference, though, this time around with Windows 7 versus Vista, and that is that as computers come up in their refresh cycle, and we got on this talk on TechBuzz. Hey, iJim. I don't believe it. iJim just jumped in there. And that is that a business typically has a 4 to 5 year refresh cycle on their PCs, generally speaking. So when Vista was released, right, machines that would have normally came up for the refresh cycle, they didn't refresh them. They just went ahead and hang on to them. And of course, the economy took a big crap on us at the same time. The other thing is that, okay, VARs and resellers, consultants were saying, well, at very minimum, wait till Service Pack 1 is released for Vista before you go down the upgrade path. We're not hearing that with Windows 7. I'm not hearing IT pros say, wait till Service Pack 1 for Windows 7 is released before you upgrade. And so we've got a huge amount of machines that are way overdue in their refresh cycle. And see, this is what I was kind of talking about, my story about Dell earlier. 80% of their customers are either corporations or governments. I didn't realize it was that high of a number. And so they're kind of going to be the last really to reap the benefits of this uplift in PC sales due to Windows 7.
I heard you talking about that earlier too, and I kind of share a different view. I don't think that this uptick is going to last very long, especially with the economic conditions have now. And I think probably being in the business, the corporate and government market is probably the safest place for a computer company to be right now. Granted, they're probably not going to make the revenue in the short term. I think that their long-term viability is definitely better if they've got big time contracts with the U.S. government, military, and large corporations. But that's just my take on it.
Yeah, well, but take a look at Apple. Okay, they've enjoyed an absolute brilliant resurgence, and they're almost, for all practical purposes, 100% consumer-oriented company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean, there's actually speculation. Their stock had hit 500. Now, I would doubt that very seriously. Okay, so they're on the other end of the spectrum, and they're totally pretty much consumer based, and they're enjoying this fantastic. And they're not only that, Jim, they're selling what I think a lot of people would say is a luxury product.
They are, but I mean, let's not count Dell out. I was just reading a story before I came on.
I'm not counting them out, but
well, I was just reading a story before I came on to do the show about how Dell is marketing its own smartphone in China.
Do you think that's going to go anywhere?
Well, I don't know. I mean, really hard to say. But if it does take off in China and it's a huge market, probably pay off for them. But who's to say if it's going to work? But I mean, they're starting to venture out. I mean, Apple's always been the front runner, since they released the iPod. People have been trying to copy the iPod now for how many years? Unsuccessful. Microsoft's tried it. Dell's tried it. HP's
Wait a second. I think Microsoft's got it right with the Zune. The Zune HD is very good.
But nobody wants a Zune. Everyone wants an iPod. And that's the problem. It's, you're right.
You're right, because the iPhone, the iPod, the iTouch,
mm-hmm.
It's the iPod Touch. This is, I was talking to Rob Johnson, we call him Corn Dog on Ustream. He feels that the iPhone makes the perfect netbook. Okay? And I think that is, right now the iPhone 3GS is probably the closest to mobile nirvana you're going to find at this point.
Well, I'd say it would be if you could have one of the little implants or project something onto your eye that you could see a screen in front of you. Like all the future tech shows are, we're going to be able to have these little implants in our eye to control mouse movement and stuff like that. If that stuff were actually here today, and we could link our iPhone into that little implant in our eye and be able to control the mouse and kind of do what we want on our phone and see it like we would see a regular computer screen, I'd say you're right. I mean, it's really hard to use an iPhone for me being an engineer, a technician. I tote my netbook around in case I need to remote into someone's network and fix it if there's a problem.
Right.
And you're generally going to get better battery life out of, some netbooks. I don't know but then again, I don't own an iPhone, so I don't know what their battery life is. I know my Google phone battery life is horrible, and I'm lucky if I make a couple of phone calls on it if I get 8 hours of battery out of it. So.
Really? Now, I've got to admit, I have the Nokia, there we go. I have the Nokia E71. If I can zoom in so you can see this better. Right there. Smartphone. It's actually a very nice smartphone. Here's the problem. It really loves to lock up.